Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Major, and today I'm presenting on predatory lending and debt collection, an analysis of Madden versus Midland funding. We'll start with an introduction to predatory lending, and then I'll introduce my anchor case. I'll cover the key laws and dive into the facts, issues, and rules, and analyze the holding. I'll end with a summary plus some business implications. Predatory lending, as defined by Cornell's Legal Information Institute, is any lending practice where the borrower is taken advantage of by the lender. Predatory lenders impose lending terms that are unfair or abusive. Examples of this include high interest rates or fees, false disclosures, and targeting vulnerable groups like low income or elderly individuals. In business law, this often involves exploitative debt collection, eroding trust, and sparking lawsuits. My anchor case is Madden versus Midland Funding, LLC, decided by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit in 2015. The plaintiff, Celia Madden, sued defendant Midland Funding. This appellate federal case addresses usury and debt sales. The key laws involved in this case include one, New York usury law. This limits on how much interest lenders can charge on loans in New York, sets a cap at 25% for consumer debts in New York. Two, the National Bank Act. National banks can charge higher interest rates allowed in their home state, even to customers in other states with stricter rules and lower rates. And finally, the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. This is a federal law that protects people from harassment tactics used by debt collectors. In 2005, New York resident Celia Madden opened a Bank of America credit card, accruing $5,000 in debt, and defaulted. In 2006, it transferred to FIA Card Services with a Delaware choice of law clause allowing higher rates than New York's 25% cap. FIA charged it off and sold the debt outright to Midland in 2008. In 2010, Midland demanded 27% interest, exceeding New York usury and potentially violating FDCPA. Madden sued Midland in 2011 for New York usury violation and FDCPA claims. The district court favored Midland, holding that because debt originated with the national bank, Midland was entitled to rely on MBA preemption. But Madden appealed to the Second Circuit. The issues before the appellate court are one, does National Bank Act override state limits on high interest for debt originating at a bank but purchased by non-bank buyers for its own account? And two, does National Bank Act override block claims under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act for deceptive collections? The rules. MBA preemption does not extend to independent buyers of debt originating at a national bank like Midland, unless state law significantly interferes with the national bank's powers. Preemption applies to subsidiaries and agents, but not to outright buyers like Midland acting on their own behalf. State usury laws regulate non-banks without impeding banks lending or selling. FDCPA claims are valid if they are based on valid state violations. The appellate court's decision was to overturn the lower court's ruling that non-bank buyers can use the National Bank Act to charge higher interest rates if the debt originates with the bank. The appellate court ruled in favor of Madden and overturned Midland's prior win. The core principle is that the National Bank Act, a federal bank law, preempts state rules if state rules interfere with national banks' core jobs like lending or selling debt. The key limitation is that non-banks, like Midland, don't get the National Bank Act shield unless they're agents, subsidiaries, or arms of the bank, not independent buyers. This prevents deceptive ways around state limits, like banks selling debts to dodge local rules, and it promotes fairness by protecting consumers from higher rates while letting banks sell bad debts to cut losses. This case was compared to another case, Crispin versus May department stores, where the bank kept control there, unlike here, where Midland owned the debt fully. In summary, the court decision prevents non-bank holders of debt from utilizing the National Bank Act to override state usury laws. MBA preemption allows national banks to utilize interest rates in the state they're located in, which may be higher than a state's usury laws allow. This only applies to actual banks or their agents, not to third parties that buy debt from banks to collect on their own behalf. This protects everyday people from getting ripped off while allowing banks to still run smoothly. Further, it creates fair balance between efficient nationwide banking on the federal side and the ability of states to protect residents from unfair loans on the state side without disrupting business across state lines. So, how does this apply to business? Banks may be able to sell bad loans at lower prices since non-bank buyers can't charge as much interest as a bank could. For consumers, they clearly know the limits of the interest rates are as set forth in the law of the state where they live. Buyers of defaulted debt may offer to split proceeds with the originating bank, so the buyer acts as an agent of bank and comes under the National Bank Act. A possible strategic option for debt buyers is to structure deals where debt buyers serve as bank agents. Thank you, and I'll open it up to questions.